trouble with family members who went missing? What happened? My sister struggled with severe panic attacks her entire life. It started when she was 12. She witnessed our neighbor murder his wife during a home invasion. She'd been babysitting their toddler and hid with the child in an upstairs closet for 3 hours, keeping the baby quiet while listening to everything below. After the murder, my sister begged our parents for therapy. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, jumped at every sound. But my parents, both senior partners at their law firm, refused. You weren't the one who lived through it, my mother said coldly. The neighbors are the real victims. You were just hiding. My father then added his favorite line. Someone's gotta pay for this big house. We gotta go work. Her breaking point came 2 years later, still having never attended therapy once. I came home early from college for spring break and found her in the bathroom, cutting parallel lines into her thighs with Dad's razor. The cut spelled out HELP in thin, precise lines. When I showed our parents, my mother sighed like I'd interrupted her with something trivial. She's attention-seeking, she said, returning to her laptop. That was the moment I knew I had to save for myself. I withdrew half my college savings and booked me and her tickets to Alaska. You see, the one thing about my sister, even through all this, was her obsession with the ocean. She said the waves drowned out the sounds from that night. She despised our suburban life, the big house that meant more to our parents. And that's why what happened on that trip was even stranger. We met this old fisherman named Earl who ran a boat salvage yard. My sister made me spend every free hour there, and on our last night, Earl pulled me aside. He said my sister had salt water in her veins, meaning some souls were meant for the sea, and keeping them on land was cruel. Back then, I thought he was just crazy. But after we returned, Alaska consumed her thoughts. She started vanishing for hours, returning with sand in her shoes, despite the nearest beach being 5 hours away. She started watching boat restoration videos at 3 a.m., taking meticulous notes. She began me boats for sale online, plotted routes, and researched commercial fishing licenses. But here's where it gets even weirder. She also started learning skills that seemed random. Diesel engine repair, solar panel installation, water desalination. I remember a specific family dinner she had excitement in her eyes like never before. She told mom and dad about her plans to go live on a boat. I genuinely never seen her so hopeful. But of course my parents shut her down with the same cold indifference they'd shown about her trauma. You're not special, my mother said during a rare family dinner. Millions of kids witness violence. They don't run away to Alaska. My father added, someone's gotta pay for this lifestyle. You think we work 80-hour weeks so you can play sailor? They threw out her navigation tools and blocked sailing websites on our router. That night, I heard my sister sobbing through our shared wall. I remember speaking to her the day after, but she just stayed quiet. I thought she started withdrawing again. She began giving away possessions. She sold her laptop and donated her unworn designer collection to charity. Then, 3 weeks before she vanished, she became eerily calm. The anxiety that had tortured her for years just evaporated. And then, one morning, I found her goodbye letter. It was devastating. She wrote that she was going into the ocean to drown. At least that way she could die surrounded by what she loved. She apologized for being weak, for not being the daughter our parents deserved. She left messages for specific people, told me to take care of her friend Marcus, who also had anxiety, reminded mom about her mammogram appointment, even mentioned our mail carrier Joyce by name. The police searched for 2 weeks. They found her car at a desert trailhead, her phone and wallet inside, her antidepressant prescription in the glove compartment, but nobody. We held a memorial with an empty casket. The grief shattered our family. My parents finally stopped working, but only because their law firm forced them to take leave after Dad broke down during a deposition. They blamed themselves, but not for the right reasons. We should have monitored her more closely, my mother kept saying. We gave her too much freedom. They moved to Michigan, claiming Phoenix had too many memories, but I knew they were running from their guilt. They still send me texts about their new jobs, their new house. I stayed in Phoenix, fell into my own depression, spent 3 years in therapy. I kept her letter in my nightstand drawer, reading it obsessively, but the more I read, the more the details didn't add up. The trailhead where they found her car, it was exactly 2 nautical miles from our house, a measurement she often circled in one of her notebooks. The desert path she supposedly took, it led to an abandoned private airstrip from the 1960s that wasn't on modern maps. I started investigating. That's how I'd found out she'd been active on sailing forums, talking to people who lived off-grid on boats. I discovered more and more strange things like that, but there was something that always bothered me about that letter no matter what I found. The paragraph breaks were bizarre. Sentences cut off mid-thought, new paragraphs starting randomly. For 3 years I analyzed it. I tried everything. UV light, chemical tests for invisible ink, pattern analysis. Then I remembered something she'd shown me about maritime navigation. Old sailors hid messages in plain sight using mathematical patterns. Last month, after 5 years of staring at those pages, it clicked. The word count of each paragraph, when converted to decimals, formed GPS coordinates. They pointed to a remote bay in Alaska, the exact spot where we'd gone kayaking on our trip. Full story where OP goes to find his sister on channel linked below.